Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jake and this is Albie. Today, we're going to be making this workbench. So let's start off with who this workbench is for. It's mainly for beginners or people with small spaces like one-car garages where they don't necessarily want the whole space to be taken up by a huge bench. It is also a very simple workbench. This isn't going to take you weeks to build. This is going to take you a weekend at most, especially if you get a lot of stuff pre-cut at Bunnings. You can get this up and ready pretty quickly. I'm going to show you in this video the base workbench, but you can also add stuff like vices, dog holes. There is a tool well in the middle here. There's a couple reasons for that. One, because when you're using hand tools, it's really useful. And two, your tools will be less likely to fall off. You can just chuck them in the middle when you're doing something else like measuring and marking. Now, I also want to show the difference between cutting with hand tools versus cutting with power tools for joinery. But both things give you very good results. So when you're choosing, just make sure that you are thinking about the price that you're willing to spend, as well as how much time you're willing to spend making projects, because when you're using just hand tools, it does naturally take you a lot longer than power tools. So I'm going to show you the tools I use in the video and the price of them specifically, but that doesn't necessarily mean the price that you have to spend on them. Say things like drills and circular saws, you can get them corded and they will be probably a little bit more powerful and a lot more useful for you, especially if you're only in a one-car garage where you can probably take a power lead wherever you need to pretty easily. Okay, so let's start with the marking and measuring tools. So, mark stuff out. You're going to need a pencil or a box cutter. They're kind of your two options. For measuring, I would get a tape measure and a combo square. This stuff can basically get you through so many different joints. The combo square is so much more versatile than something like a carpenter's square or an engineer's square. But all you need to know is a combo square is your friend when you're first looking at getting into some tools at Home Depot, Bunnings, whatever homeware store you go to.
Hey guys, so I wanted to just jump in and say all these tools that I'm showing you are DeWalt, so they're going to be much more expensive than say your Ryobi's or your Zitos. Don't let this discourage you though, because I'm just wanting to show you the reflective price of what I have currently sitting on my table. I don't want you to go into Bunnings or Home Depot or wherever you shop and realize that I've shown you a DeWalt tool at a Ryobi price, because that's not fair to you. Don't get discouraged by the price is all I'm trying to say. All these tools you would be able to find cheaper options. I'm just showing what I have on the table. So with that all being said, let's get back into the video and enjoy.
Okay, let's move on to the power tools. Now, if you were just power tools and nothing else, the 4 tools you would need, if you were to have all of them to build this project, would be a drill, circular saw, router, and jigsaw. It'll let you drill and screw holes, it'll let you cut stuff to length and width, it'll let you cut curves, and the router will clean up any joinery bottoms that you might have. So that basically allows you to use only power tools. You won't need chisels, you won't need saws, you won't need anything like that. Now hand tools, you're going to need a handsaw, you're going to need a chisel, you're going to need a hammer, and preferably a coping saw. The coping saw is to cut around curves. That's mainly for the vise if you decide to add it into your project. So the non-consumables, you're going to need screws, glue, and finish. Pretty simple, and I wouldn't recommend sanding this project too much, but if you were, maybe getting a sander and some sandpaper wouldn't be too bad. You're going to need it in another project pretty soon as you finish this one, really.
Okay, so let's stop talking about the projects you're going to be doing in the future, and let's start talking about the project you're doing right now. So the first thing that you really want to be looking at is your order of operation. It's one of the biggest things that if you get wrong, will really stuff you down the line, where if you get right, the ending of your project will be so nice and efficient. Now, if you didn't already, cut all your stuff down to length first. Now, I recommend you only really cutting to final length, the 2 legs, 2 long thick stretches, and the two long, thin stretches. All of this will allow you to assemble the two sides, do all the joinery that you need to, and then you finally cut the short stretches to length once the two side assemblies are together. Now, moving on from that, you've also got to make sure that you assemble stuff square. There's a few different ways to do it. Number one is you measure from corner to corner with a tape measure or a ruler if you somehow have a ruler that big. And if the number is the same, then you've got a square project. If they're not the same, it is slightly out of square and you are actually measuring a rhombus. The other way is the 3, 4, 5 method. It's basically just using Pythagoras theorem, where you measure down 3 inches, 3 millimeters, 30 millimeters, like a 3. Then you measure across 4, and then the diagonal should be 5. If the diagonal is not 5, then you have built something out of square. That is a very simple explanation on how to assemble stuff square. If you want deeper explanations, I'm sure there's other videos on YouTube that can explain it better than I just did. Now, one of the main things that I'm showing in this video is the difference between power tools and hand tools. Within that clip that you just saw of the two side-by-side versions, the hand tools was only doing half of the joinery required for a side assembly. The power tools did a full set of joinery for the side assembly, and they took roughly around the same amount of time of recording. Now, overall, that shows you that the hand tools are about half as slow as a power tool to get stuff just as accurate, if not slightly more or slightly less, depending on how anal you want to be about precision. Now, obviously, I've been using some older hand saws here. They're a bit rusty, they're a bit blunt, so when you buy a new saw, whether it's a Japanese saw or a Western saw, you will find it much easier to cut, kind of regardless if you're buying tenon saws or anything like that. A lot of people will recommend pull saws. I do as well, but that's a discussion for another video. But basically, when you are deciding on what type of tool you want to buy, is first deciding on your budget. Like I said, hand tools are much cheaper than power tools are, but there's a trade-off. Usually that comes with price and time. Mainly time. If you have all weekend to cut something square, go for your life, use a handsaw. If you have a weekend to build a set of tables and chairs, go with a circular saw. It'll cut down the time extremely, and you will probably enjoy it much more than having to slave away with a handsaw. The same thing comes when it comes to assembling things. You will see me using a drill and driver here. Now, if I didn't have a drill and driver, I would be gluing everything and using nails, so a hammer. But I prefer using a screw, using a driver because it takes me half the amount of time, actually well less than half the amount of time to screw into a board compared to using an actual screwdriver. Now, is it possible to do it with an actual screwdriver? Yes. Godspeed to you, my friend, if you decide to use a hand screwdriver to screw in 40 screws into a project. Now, one of the important things when you are using a handsaw is being able to cut square. The way I do it is I mark one face and one edge. I cut a 45-degree along those two lines, and then I tilt it up and I make a score mark along the face. This then allows me to very gently just pull my saw back and forth, or push it back and forth, however you want to look at it, and it'll cut pretty well close to square 90% of the time. If you're using really fine furniture, I mean, handsaw finish will never be as good as a shooting board anyway, so I would always recommend going to a shooting board after if you're doing fine furniture. But shop projects or rough projects like this, using a handsaw finish is totally fine. But let's get back to the screws and nails. Because if you're applying glue to everything, you can use nails 100% of the time and probably be pretty well off, because the glue joint is so strong, especially if you use a good quality glue. I prefer using screws because a lot of the times I also make projects that I want to be able to repair easily. Especially with this project, you're going to want to be able to repair the tabletop. So you don't necessarily want to be gluing in the tabletop because it's going to be dented and damaged anyway because it's a workbench.
Where can I go?
Okay, now that brings us to the end of the video. We now have a workbench standing in front of us. If you have completed the project, well done to you. Welcome into the world of woodworking, and we are hopefully going to see you around here quite a bit. If you want to stick around and see more types of projects that I make on this channel, please hit that subscribe button, as it does really help us out, and I would love to see you stick around for future projects, previous projects, and the like. If you did like the video itself, please drop a like, as it does help us out. It helps us get out to more people to show them that woodworking doesn't necessarily have to take a long time, but you can still get a good thing that works within a short period of time and a short amount of tools. Also, if you have any questions, queries, or comments, drop them down below. I would love to read them all, and I would love to respond to you guys, because that is something that I think is the best part about sharing stuff on YouTube, is I get to talk to you guys in the comments below, get to see your feedback, especially if I've done something wrong, done something that you guys might do something a little bit differently, maybe a tool that you would have included instead of one that I did. So, with all that being said, I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day, and until next time, see ya.